Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Now, let's get this show on the road.
You gotta love it so much that when you hate it, you still love it. And that only makes sense to those that go through that grind.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, we are stepping up to Thanksgiving week and having our Thanksgiving episode, which happens to be episode 21. And, we keep plugging along like we keep saying every single week. And we hope you're enjoying things. We hope we're enjoying some of the conversations we're having. But this week, we're going to talk some football, right? Right, Joe?
Well, why not, Tosh? Thanksgiving and football, I think they're one and the same. And I agree, Tosh. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It is my favorite holiday, I would say. Obviously I love Christmas and that, but Thanksgiving, man, it's all about eating, and it's all about family, it's all about football, and we've got a great, we specifically wanted to put Nick Salm on Thanksgiving. It's a football day, and whether you have time in the morning, evening, sometime over the weekend when you're in line shopping, take a listen. Nick's story is incredible because he started, he saw a problem at middle school football, and he completely revamped it. It's incredible what he did, and it's worth a listen. So I think it's, let's be thankful for Nick and what he did, and let's be thankful for football.
Yeah, and, football is always a topic this time. You get the Packers playing Thanksgiving. So,
yeah.
After you're done listening to the Newsa-Cast, you can tune into the Packers and see them take on the Lions, which is always it's always fun when your team is playing on Thanksgiving. But we just had a whole bunch of state championships, 7 of them, in fact, just happened last weekend.
Down in Madison, state championship. We had 2 teams that from the area that made it down.
Yeah.
Both Wrightstown and Luxembourg-Casco, tough teams, tough division. Both those teams play outstanding. But I tell you what, the teams they went up against were tough. La Crosse Aquinas, Wrightstown played them, and Aquinas won. This is Division 5. They won their 3rd straight Division 5 state title. It really is, and Wrightstown gave it a hell of an effort. They were up 13-0 midway through the first quarter, and then Aquinas came back with 4 unanswered touchdowns. The game was over. And then after the Division 5 game, Lodi took on Luxembourg-Casco in the Division 4. And, well, let's just say Lodi is a perfect 14-0, tough, just a dominant team. Finished 488 yards in total offense.
It's tough to compete against that.
It really is. So I'm getting these stats from the AppletonSportsPage.com, and we haven't talked about it much, Tosh. We don't even have to talk about it much here, other than to say that there is a Fox Valley recap, and when we quickly just recap kind of what happens each weekend with some of these interesting stories. But I want to share one more. It's on that episode, but this I thought was such a cool story. So in the Division 6 game, there was a kid by the name of Lorenz Plattner. He's a German foreign exchange student. He's never played American football before this fall. This kid kicks a 32-yard field goal with no time remaining. He plays for Stratford. He wins the game 10-7 over at Darlington in the Division 6 final. Camp Randall, the kid, foreign exchange student, comes here in the fall, never plays football before. Kid just freaking bombs a 32-yarder in Camp Randall, and Stratford wins.
That's awesome.
Yeah, unbelievable. The Tigers, the Stratford Tigers, that was their 2nd straight title. That ties. I mean, we all are familiar with St. Mary's Springs. That's just a legendary program. Well, Stratford has the same number of titles, and that's 9 state titles. It's just unbelievable. The teams, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always fun to recap that, and we're moving into winter sports now. So
Yes.
I know hockey's kicking up. Obviously, I know that. And Fox City Stars are heading to Sheboygan Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Kyle Neurer Memorial Hockey Tournament that Sheboygan puts on. Fantastic tournament. We got our JV and varsity both playing some games. And they do a great job there in Sheboygan. It's actually the 19th annual tournament. So great memorial to that young man, and they continue to do that. But hockey's kicking up. We got basketball. We got wrestling. Lots of things we're going to talk about over the following weeks and throughout the winter. And like you said, Joe, you can always catch those recaps, and you can always go to AppletonSportsPage.com to get articles about your local favorite team as well.
Yeah, Paul does a great job. It's a great follow on Facebook. Is the best way to follow. He has daily stories. It's like reading, just like you remember reading a newspaper article. It's exactly that's how it's written. You can follow any of the 5 Appleton high schools. He kind of tailors his coverage towards them right now. But you get a feel for everybody by following it. He does a great job, and you're right up to date. No question about it.
I know you have something you want to talk a little bit about, Joe, though.
I know we've had a long open here already for us, but my daughter Amelia is part of the Appleton North theater program, and this is my first experience with that. Both my boys have been sports boys. Everybody knows I've officiated. I mean, my whole world has been sports. I've always low-key loved the theater. My mom kind of taught me that, gave me love of it, but I've never really been involved in it. My daughter is nothing but theater. I tell you what, this North, you hear about how great the program is. I've been to some of the musicals. They've been incredible, but to actually just sit there and have a vested interest, I was just blown away. And she started this summer with the Shakespeare program that was absolutely insane. They just finished competing in the one act state finals. They won their 25th in a row. I actually we talk a little bit more about it in an old look at news, so I won't bore you with the details right now, but suffice it to say, an incredible run. But more than anything, the talent of these kids. I mean, you and I focus a lot on the sports. I mean, that's what this show is about for sure. Is every bit as good as those athletes are, these performers and actors are every bit as good on their level and their athletic ability. They're just their ability, and they're no fear. I mean, I just blown away about just the freedom they feel on the stage. And then, Ron Parker is just legendary, and I don't know. I'm so impressed. I guess I want to shout it from the mountaintop that if you get a chance to go see anything Appleton North, Renaissance has Rent coming out soon in December. That's going to be a fantastic show. There's just such great theater in this area, and it's super inexpensive. It's kid appropriate. It's something to do, and I can't stress enough to check that out. It's so worth it. If you ever had a love for theater, check one of these shows out. It's not like your elementary school thing. This is big time.
Yeah, it's not your Christmas program,
right.
At your Sunday school. They do a great job. We have some great theaters in the area here, and you can always check something out, whether it's Brilliant or Kaukauna or Kimberly or Appleton. There's plays going on all over the place, and if you've never checked one out before, you've never been to a play, go check it out. They do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do go to Appleton North, they do have a campaign for a Light Our Stage campaign. They're looking, I mean, that school is 25 years old. Tash, you work in the school system, it takes forever to upgrade anything. And whether it's a science wing, whether it's an athletic field, whether it's a theater, and Appleton North specifically needs lights, and they're worthy of the lights for the hard work that they put in. Appleton North Theater, the donate page. It's pretty simple, and it's great use of your money. I guarantee it. They're so close to the goal. They just need a little bit more. So please consider in the holidays. That would be awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I think we get this show on the road, and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And when you're sitting in your couch, listen to the Newsa-Cast after you stuff your face with some turkey and stuffing.
Yes.
Hope you enjoy the show. Well,
Tosh, goal of the Newsa-Cast was always to tell stories, to find people in northeastern Wisconsin, to explore their story, understand what they did, what they're doing, and we have exactly that today with Nick Salm. We tell the story of, Nick's a longtime football coach. His brother Rob is the football coach at Appleton North, but Nick, almost 10 years ago, spotted a problem at the middle school level, a disconnect in youth football between Pop Warner and getting to high school, and that whole level was missing. And Nick developed a plan, completely revised football, took safety to the absolute paramount, and he was a one man, and Kip Golden certainly helped, but just that vision, he was visionary. I always tell Nick he was entrepreneurial in this thing, because it was just, he developed what middle school football is right now in the AYFA, the Great Lakes League. So really cool to talk to Nick, to understand, to learn his story. And I think it's very educational to the folks out there to hear it.
Yeah. It was you saw a lot of programs, successful programs at the high school level, have feeder programs directly into them. And we see that now in Appleton. We see that now with the Fox Valley Saints as well, feeding into Xavier and FVL. And it's fantastic. My youngest was the first one to go all 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade with the Saints. And it's definitely made an impact on those programs, just like it has in the Appleton programs.
Yeah, no doubt. That was Nick's vision, and it's what we set out to do, right? With this podcast, is to have these exact conversations and cover these kind of topics. So sit back and enjoy, folks. And again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
How was the Charger season? Let's start with that.
Well, it's always great. We have great numbers, which is huge. The Rebels are way up on numbers. They look good. West is still struggling a little bit. I think they always will. They just have not had that support from the top down. And I think Dom will bring that. As you guys can imagine, he was drinking out of a fire hose. He's not a seasoned coach, great guy. And he probably will be the right guy, but it's just you're drinking through a fire hose until you figure all this stuff out. And then when you say, your responsibility is varsity football or high school football. And then they say, oh, and by the way, you need to be supporting this middle school program too.
Right.
You're one person, you're writing, the first, it's like when you're a teacher, that first couple of years writing, your classes, you're writing everything for the first time. And then you just make subtle changes as you keep going. Well, he's writing those first, lessons.
Absolutely. And you've seen, numbers have been growing. You had a hand in the Saints program, and they had a huge increase in numbers over the last couple of years as well. I think, you're seeing the fruits of your labor of what you were expecting and what you were seeing. So I think going back, what was the vision when you first started this out?
When we first started, it was 2014, 13. Joe and I's sons were third graders. When we started looking into this, and they were going through the Pop Warner program, which, is one of the best around.
Yeah.
And by the time they were in 5th grade, as parents, you're always looking forward. You're always looking, okay, so what is next year? And you'd look at all the better teams, whether it was a Kimberly community, Pop Warner team or Kakan or whatever, they were going on to their feeder leagues. And we were just going to keep playing each other. And so a lot of eyebrows, me as a football guy, is Jamie Nelson. He said, I know what to do, Nick. And we all know it needs to be done, but there's really only one guy who can do it. It has to be a football guy that parents would trust enough to jump out there and say, we can do something different and better and be like everybody else. And so that was 2015.
When we went to middle school, Tosh and I, when 80s and 90s, Appleton middle school, high school, or middle school football was the thing, right? That was the powerhouse. That was great coaching. Everybody played it. Great games. That was football. You go to the time that you're talking about, and it wasn't like that. It isn't like that. Appleton Appleton didn't play the Ninas, the Kimberleys anymore in a schedule. They pretty much only played themselves. And there was a real disconnect there for 2 years of football for these kids coming out of Pop Warner, transitioning to high school. That middle year, those 2 years was not very good football.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, Joe. So what had happened was, you know, when in the 1900s, when we played, football, the middle school football program was the FVA.
Yes.
We played the Oshkoshes. We played, you know, and we played each other because we were big. And that was great competition because it was the FVA. So then what happened, they built North High School. And then someone said they could save an awful lot of money now that we had so many teams in Appleton that you didn't have to travel. So they watered it down intentionally. They decided that they were going to just do middle school football within the city. And I don't think their intentions were wrong. I think everybody has good faith and intention, but you didn't think of what would happen. And when our kids were coming up in 2016, we looked at it and we were, okay, so if your kid played quarterback, which neither of ours did, but if your kid played quarterback, and that is the position where you really need opportunity, you need to start learning how to see the field and command and all those things that a quarterback does. And in the middle school league in Appleton at the time, he may have played 2.5 total games of football in the middle school season. And anybody would tell you that's not enough. And so our kids were shortchanged. They'd come to freshman year and they wouldn't have anywhere near, you know, the opportunities given to her, the confidence built, and very candidly, you ask how the Chargers season just wrapped up. It's the same thing, right? We had a bunch of kids with a whole bunch of experience that they could make the mistakes and learn from them, and so they don't do it later on. And then, the other part of that is when you don't get experience, and, I'm a huge component of this whole safety bit. Okay. And so we're always so nervous about, safety. And when your kids don't know football because they didn't have much experience, when they, it's a safety issue because they're now going bigger, faster, stronger, and they're running into guys and they don't know where they're going because the other guys do. So now it's a safety issue. And why did you have? So when we started the AYFA, the previous year before the AYFA, they had 14 concussions at the middle school level. And we added how many more kids, and we had one. In 1 year, that was the difference. Now we had a lot better equipment because we went out and bought good stuff, but we played more football, a lot more football, and bad injuries were actually down.
My youngest has come through the Saints. He was the first one to go 6, 7, and 8. My oldest son played when FVL and Xavier just combined for 7th and 8th grade. And one of the big things is what you just brought up is the fact that you guys are teaching football and coaching football as coaches all around this entire organization, safety, how to tackle, how to do things the proper way. And not that in middle school, there wasn't that, but you guys are making it a priority.
Right.
And I think that's a huge part of the good things you guys are doing.
Yeah, it is.
Tosh, I don't think anybody no coach ever set out to get anybody hurt, but there definitely was not the proper coaching at all. I mean, Nick, and this is probably the perfect time to speak to it. One of probably the most impressive numbers that come out of the AYFA and now really the Great Lakes as a whole, that league, is the concussion numbers. I mean, I think you said 14 concussions coming into before the AYFA was started. That's and they're playing half the amount of games and you have 14 concussions. That's astronomical. The emphasis right off the get-go, the biggest budget item with the AYFA was helmets. I learned more about helmets sitting around shooting the bull with you than I've ever learned in my life, but you took it very serious and you 100% addressed the concern of safety in football, and it started with the helmets.
And another take on that is we were at a really interesting time with football. we were under attack. We weren't doing things well. We were, go back to 2016 and you had these knockout hits and we were celebrating all the wrong stuff. And then CTE came out, the movie came out, we were under attack. And traditionally, and I learned a lot. And the neat part of what you learned was that the difference on how to solve and fix things isn't the NFL coming out and saying, hey, we're making all these rule changes. We actually had to organically start it at the youth level. They partnered with USA Football, and then they started changing how we talked. Now you think about back in our day, right? Put a hat on them, right shoulder tackle, all the things we used to say, they incorporate the head. But if you change the language in just a simple word, like if you a right shoulder tackle, now you think about your shoulder tackle and how you got to lean down, bringing your head with the tackle to bring your shoulder to the tackle. Now you switch the term shoulder to chest, and you just remove the head just by changing one word. And so now you're teaching the chest. Now you actually then need to have them start putting their hat on the other side of the carrier and then doing a twist and teaching the kids how to twist tackle. Now, when we were playing back in the day, twist tackling was dangerous and you didn't do it. But then when you teach it now this hawk roll tackle, nobody's getting hurt. Like they're both learning how to fall. And I never would have thought this, but I teach, and I'm a coach, varsity football coach for running backs. And we actually talk constantly when a quarterback's running, when the running backs, we teach them how to fall. Because how many injuries actually happen from the ground? Most head injuries are actually from the ground.
Right.
They're whiplash concussions. And so when you just make all these changes and then you preach that you're doing it for a reason, the best ability for any athlete has always been availability. And if you're available, you're great and an asset to your team. If you're not available, then you have to make changes. And so, yeah, there's been some wonderful people, but the stuff that's out there to help all of this is unbelievable. Like the USA Football is just, I know the NFL takes a beating, but they fund it. They fund all of it. And so they are trying. They have. And we need advocates down at the levels where we were in Appleton, Wisconsin. So when Pop Warner, I was their first safety director. And this was, again, I think our kids were 3rd and 4th grade. And they said, hey, we're going to adopt this USA Football. Take a look. I must have given 5-6 clinics. And I committed, I told them, and they said, we want about 70 to 75% of coaches all to be certified heads up, trained coaches to teaching kids the new style of safety tackling and blocking. And so I said, well, why would we let 25% off the hook? What do you mean? Well, it's not attainable. And I said, well, it is if you demand it. You can't coach if you don't get certified. And it was a pain back then. It was like 4 hours. I mean, it was long. But you went through it. I learned a ton. And then, you always think, oh, well, I coached 20 years. I know it. You don't know squat. I mean, I forget more each year than I learned today. But back in the day, I learned everything. I mean, everything was so fresh and new. And with that first year, we got 100% certified. Again, I was in the pavilions giving these clinics, and we came to our winter meetings, and a couple of the board members had gone down to the national convention. I think it was Dallas or Houston. And we got nationally recognized because we were one of the first organizations to get 100%. And I thought, wow, okay, well, all we did is demand. And, the parents, they're parents. So they're not going to let semantics take away from their ability to coach. They're just going to go do it. They'll find time. And they do. And they have. They always have. But then once we got control and started the AYFA, then, as Joe said, we took every liberty to find out the latest and greatest. When Zenith first came to the market, they changed it. Zenith helmets, we had 3 stud football players. You guys might remember Steve Likefus, Vinny Biskupik, and it was middle linebacker Kobe Knuth. These were returning all-state players. These guys were Vinny had a concussion the year before, and Likefus carried the ball 900 times a season. Kobe Knuth, was known for breaking face masks. I mean, the guy hit so hard that he was an outstanding middle lineman. So we got 3 Zenith helmets, and they were like $550 a piece, which that was 2009 maybe. And they're super expensive, but we got 3, and we put them on those 3 guys. And all of them went through the whole season without an injury. And we talked about, so they had these shock absorbers all over in the helmet.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. And these things it was a totally different way of building a helmet. And so what it did is, like anything, folks like to complain that, well, Kimberly Kimberly made the FBA better because they're so good. They do everything. They do so many things well, and the rewards are, they work. Those kids work as hard as anybody. They did, there's but that system, Kimberly does, and they made the FBA better. They made North better. They made everybody better because that was harder to get to where they were. Good for them. Well, in the helmet world, Zenith came in and shocked everybody. They said that we're going to do it totally different. And everybody got better, and then helmets got safer. And then a few years ago, Vices comes out, and they did it totally different. And now this is brand new, and it probably won't be released for a little while. Clint Brightman's probably all excited that I'm going to say it, but Zenith is coming out and redoing it again. Like, they are going to shock the whole helmet world again. And I got to see the prototype. It's unreal. It's awesome. And our kids get the opportunity to put these things on their heads and make the game safer. I mean, there's some really neat stories out there. I'm talking to the Zenith folks a lot, and that's a cool helmet. But what they're doing, and they're trying to revolutionize it again.
The new ones now, I like the ones almost with the embedded face mask are pretty sick looking, aren't they? I don't even know who makes them. I don't think they're a Zenith, but.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. So when you see that on Big College, and you see that on NFL, and those aren't available to the regular world. And even when you see an F7 shutout there and Aaron Rodgers wearing it, the guts really aren't an F7 shut.
Yeah.
They're customizing that helmet and making it great and doing things, but. My son, I've always put my son in what I considered the very best. Some dads think that it's smart to spend $500 a year on a bat. I think it's smart to spend $1,000 once. And he wore that same helmet for 4 years, wore it in the All-Star game, and now it's retired. But that Vices helmet was awesome. And, interesting thing is he wore that in the cold games. And guys would complain about the cold helmet. He never complained because how that technology works, he was comfortable. He wanted to leave his helmet on. So, yeah, there are really some amazing stories out there when it comes to equipment. And Zenith now with their new shoulder pads, I mean, they got shock absorbers built right into them. And I got a funny story about shoulder pads if you want to listen to it.
Hey, we love equipment.
Oh my gosh, it's the coolest story. So my son gets an AC. Actually, Cal Martini got it first. He gets an AC strain in his shoulder, and he's going to have to sit. And I had this weird device back in college when I had an AC injury myself, and I'm just kind of thinking, well, what were they doing? Let's take that a step further. It was like a giant Lego, like one Lego, and it had a knob on it, and it had these straps, and you put these straps, trying to keep it in the right spot. And so I went to my dad. My dad's an old farmer, and he's kind of one of those, he's a magician when it comes to, we'll just put a mechanism on. We'll do that. So I went to him and I grabbed some old shoulder pads, some deltoid pads, cut them all off. And we went down in his basement to the Papa Sam workshop. And I said, here's my idea. And so we took these delt pads, which is kind of like a kidney bean shape. It's got padding underneath and it's rigid plastic on top. And we took a hole saw and drilled it right through the middle. And then we opened that up and we put one of those shock absorbers in it and then put a rigid top on it. And then I used a bunch of athletic tape to fit this thing together. And then the first one, we did a bunch of shoulder pad, elastic straps, and we strapped this thing all on. We put it on Cal Martini, and it was hard to keep it in the right spot, but it worked. it deferred around that AC joint and it didn't hurt him. So he was able to play. So then we went back to the workshop again when Brock hurt his shoulder. And I said, well, Cal's struggle, we got to get better, Dad. And Cal's struggle was he had this pad moving around. And so I'd be digging in his stinky stuff and moving that pad in the right place. So with Brock's, we did the same thing. We created a shock absorber, put it in there, taped it all up, and then we put zip ties on it. And we actually zip tied it in place into his shoulder pads. And so it didn't move around. And funny story. So, and then Brock played the whole season with it and no problems. And so, you look at, this season, Brock Arndt hurt his shoulder in the scrimmage. He was going to be out 2 weeks to start the season. He comes up and he goes, you got an AC pad thing or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, my dad and I'll fit you with Brock's. Or we grabbed one and we put it in there, and he said instantly he felt nothing. He was able to play. He was out 2 weeks and he was able to play right away. And we put that pad in there. So I talked to Zenith. I've been talking to Zenith about coming out with a line of accessories to help with certain injuries and so on and so forth in their pads. We are also working on potentially, because I'm signing with Zenith to work with them, but actually creating a helmet that has a custom fitted Guardian cap, because we've seen the reduction of concussions just by wearing Guardian caps in practices. And so I said, why don't we do a custom Guardian cap for your helmets, and you buy 2 in 1. Right now we're paying $50-$60 for a Guardian cap to add to a helmet. And it's universal, but it doesn't fit perfect. What if you had a $40 option to add to your helmet sale, and you actually came with a Guardian type cap and it fit custom? And so we're working on a couple things with them, but yeah, I'm a nerd about equipment. But it's funny when you get Papa Sam down there, and we were able to build if you saw them, you'd just laugh your butt off. You're like, what did you guys do? And they're cool.
You guys, you started using the Guardian caps at North, and then did that filter down to the youth program?
Yeah. So it was a donation at North. And one of the parents came up and said, why are they using them up there and we're not here? And I'm like, well, do you know how much they are? And he goes, well, how much would it take to put them on all the chargers? And I said, probably $6,500. And he goes, all right, I'll write a check, get them ordered. That's wow. Exactly what happened. And we've had great parents all the way through. When we started the AYFA and we decided to do it, we came out of a Pop Warner meeting and they weren't going to endorse what we were doing. So when we decided to do it, I looked around at Kip Golden and some others. Joe, you were probably in the room. And we said, we literally don't own a single piece of equipment. We don't have uniforms. We don't have anything but an idea at this point. I'm actually going to get back to your original question, Joe. I did a 7-page proposal. And it originally included the Appleton Saints. And so, or actually, I think it was your question, Tosh. But it was a 7-page. We pitched. We put it out to some parents, and the parents. We had 110 parents show up to this idea meeting, and so then it was like, oh gosh, there's a real want and need from the parents to do something different at the middle school level. Started talking to Peter Kotz. They weren't ready. They weren't close. They didn't have the support from Xavier at the time. But when Seth Yeager came in, that changed. Yeah. That guy's awesome. And so the support with Peter, then Seth driving from FVL, then we were able to put that together. But yeah, the Saints were involved. We said it all the time. It was all about Appleton, because when I started this, it was going to, the whole idea was, when we sat down, we were just going to start the Chargers. Mm-hmm. And what good would that actually do for our city to have the more affluent area take off and do something and not be supportive of the other? It just, to me, it seemed, I don't know if the term would be selfish. I think it's close to that word, but it felt so wrong. And we wanted to start the Chargers, and we were going to, and we did. And then we were going to start the Tigers and the Rebels. And Kip Golden started the Rebels with 6 players. And we were begging and trying to get kids to come out. And then I don't know how many he ended up with, but they got a season, and it was tough. They had 6th graders playing up, and they were kind of a hybrid with the 8th grade. But then when it was so successful, we actually went in front of the Appleton School Board, and they had the 8th grade coaches in there. They had the high school head coaches. They had everybody in the room. Andy Shanky actually went to the board and started it, and he just said, listen, there's one subject matter expert in the room right now when it comes to middle school football, and it's Nick. And here's the deal. If we don't listen to him, he's offering an olive branch to us right now, and we should be grateful. But if we don't listen to him, we won't have football at the school level anymore, because he does it better. If I had a kid coming through right now, he'd play for Nick's in the way Nick's doing it versus what we're doing in the middle school. So I think you ought to listen to it. And they did. They listened. It was a really great meeting. We had 3 middle school coaches quit that day from the district. And then we created the hybrid, and now it's a well-oiled machine. I'm actually going to be talking to Green Bay School District to help them maybe do the same thing, because they have 3 clubs up there, but they're not feeders. They're just clubs. They're old school clubs. And so we're going to be talking to the district because they want to hear about what we did, because our numbers are growing like crazy. We broke the record, our old record, for the most kids in the AYFA. I think we were around 335 this past season. So they have St. Philip's, which has done a really nice job. They have Alloway, and then they have St. Joe's. And then they have their middle school programs, and they fight each other all the time. And really, it should be about the kids, but it's adulting gone wrong.
Right.
What are you trying to preserve? I don't get it. They could do it a lot better, and hopefully they do.
One of the things I wanted to touch on it, and you briefly mentioned it, but it's important, and I think it's a lesson really that each group that runs the AYFA should remember. When you and Kip started this, your message was loud and clear always, that it was always one for all and all for one. It wasn't just a Charger thing. Even though you said the initial idea was, let's just do it as a Charger, you quickly saw that didn't make sense for the betterment of football, for the betterment, even selfishly, for the betterment of Appleton North football. It was much better to start the AYFA under this, where everybody was together. And you two absolutely made sure that was the case, and it was always the case, whether it was ordering socks or whatever the case was, it was 100% equal. And then you did that same thing with Peter and the Saints, and you've helped Hortonville, get started and do their same thing. And, whether those groups follow the same model, I'm not sure, but they were taught that way. And to me, people have to remember that lesson. That's the true lesson in this. You should be admired for that. That to me is one of the greatest things out of this whole entire story, is that message.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Joe. And I think it felt right. And I think for any of us, if it doesn't feel right, you got to make an adjustment. You got to change. You got to try. And when you said all about Appleton, that was, I think one of the, there are times in life when things kind of stop, right? They stop in time. And when my son was a 10-year-old, I went to a Little League meeting, and Steve Peters was the president at the time. And he said something that I'm writing a book, and it's actually for youth coaches. And it's because I changed as a coach, that day, that moment. And the coaches and the leadership, they're all adults, right? And they're all just bickering about ridiculousness, and so he says, guys, if you could just think about what you're saying, and if you could just focus your decisions and what that might look like through the eyes of those kids. And when you talk, when you're trying to make these decisions, make sure that what you're saying looks right through their eyes. And when he said it was kind of like, well, duh, but nobody does that. They don't think that what our actions are and what our words are, and that a 10-year-old kid is drastically impacted one way or another. It could be bad, could be good. And so I sat and I thought, well, and I've talked to Steve about it, and it was like one of those things that, you go through life and then happens. And I thought, my goodness, if you could just teach coaches to say and do the right things. And so in this case, it was about equity. It's not the same at North. It's not the same at West and East. Those are not the same. It's not the same at the Saints with that co-op. And Hortonville is different, right? But the equity part is all kids. So when you start looking at, can you help us build a program in Green Bay? Can you help us at Hortonville? Can you absolutely steal everything I had? Me as a coach is a compilation of stolen ideas. Every good coach has it. You steal everything that's good. And that's how you get better too, is you keep stealing stuff. And, is stealing the right word? No, but that's what you do. You get these ideas. And so when you look at, we're talking about middle school kids, and we were all trying to do what was best for them. And it's an equity thing. Are we treating all these kids the same? Yeah. Yeah. Everybody gets the socks. Why? 'Cause duh. So we run these programs where we work with Red Smith in their program, Every Kid Plays. And, I was part of the group that put that together and built that. And the whole idea was, if Johnny and Timmy both want to play football or basketball or soccer, whatever, and Johnny comes through from a different position, parents, it's easy to get the $150 or $200. Timmy doesn't. But they're the same doggone kid. Like they're going to be the same teammate. They're going to go to they're going to work. They're going to be friends. They want to play together. How do we get Timmy to not worry about that? And so we got to find ways. The Every Kid Plays is a way where Timmy doesn't even know. He just signed up with Tommy or Jimmy. And then, mom might be the only one that knows. Coaches wouldn't know. That's the way to do this, right? Every kid gets the same opportunity. In football, it's great because you throw a helmet on and everybody looks the same. So the bigger kids look big yet.
Just remember, Timmy and Johnny, stealing is wrong, but stealing's okay too.
Yeah, right. Stealing can be all right.
Right.
Well, you bring up a good point though. Where the big thing is getting kids involved in something. And the more we get them involved, the more that they want to go to school, the more they want to attend, the more they're invested in their education. And, and we've seen the news stories about the attendance issues in Appleton. But when you get these kids, and being a teacher, I see these kids, when they're involved during their season, they're much more likely to do better in the classroom as well. And then we get them out of season and we see a drop off. Right. But that's where the coaches come in, and that's where some of the other auxiliary things come together, that we continue to keep these kids in. So giving the kids the opportunity, I mean, that's the big thing that you're talking about here. We're giving kids an opportunity to play.
Yeah, that's the only important that, so coaches can screw kids up too, but most of the time they don't. We have good coaches. Usually if there's this fear of, you got to get rid of the dads, right? They shouldn't coach. Well, where are you going to find non-dads to coach 6th grade, 7th grade football, right? So let's be realistic. And if you find a couple here and there, they're probably going to coach for a couple of years, but it'll be hard as their lives get busier and so on. But dads can be great. And that's why I want to write this book, so the dads can say, how do I be a good coach? Yeah. And I wanted a simple read. It's only at like 35 pages right now. I don't know how long I'm going to make it, but it's just going to be, here are the basic principles, right? Number one, to be a good coach, you just have to protect kids. I don't know if it's from you. I don't know if it's from another coach or a parent or another player or yourself. But you got to protect kids, and you got to look out for them. You got to see what's going on. You got to ask questions. You had that test yesterday, Timmy. How did it go? Did it go okay? Didn't? Oh, okay. Well, how can I help?
Yeah.
Can we? Let's have a good. So, talk to the kids, right? And so, I think it's important that the main thing they do is just always looking out for them, right? See it through their eyes. What do you think? They're having a hard day. They're having a bad day. Well, something's more important right now than football. So we got to help them. And so I think that's the biggest one is, just protect. And then the second thing, I think every good coach should be a constant talent evaluator, especially at the youth level, because these kids are getting better. They're learning. They don't have a clue. And the second they buy in, you got to be ready for them. You got to get them on the field to do this or that. Give them a chance. Go fail. I don't care. But you got to constantly evaluate talent. And all good coaches know that. But at the youth level, it's so much more important because how do you push them through your program? And so at the beginning of the year, they didn't know what left and right was, but now they know left and right. But they also can make a difference with their team because they know it. And then, and then the last thing is actually just teaching football, like teach them their level of football and progress them on and make sure there's, and that includes the heads up stuff and the safe and all that. So you do those three things. It's really hard to screw a kid up. Just do those things and don't worry about wins and losses.
I want to touch base on something that you started as well. And it's the gridiron kickoff, right?
Yeah.
What a great event that is. I know Ethan has got to play in it a few years, and what an amazing event. That's just an absolute blast.
Yeah, thanks. That was that, Joe, I think we lost a lot of money on the first year we ever did it. we were going to do it we were going to kick off a season and just play a ton of games in Appleton. It just didn't work for so many reasons that we didn't see.
But Nick, we had a lot of tents. We had so many tents.
We had tents.
We did have tents.
We had great music. We had tents.
Yes.
We had, but, and we actually had beer.
We did.
But we did. So the idea is to celebrate football, and at the same time, we were going to bring in a ton of vendors and let them teach about all this equipment that we just bought, and help the programs because they'd get a chance to get educated with it. And the reality is we could only play so many games, and then we thought the teams would come back to one site, USA Youth Sports, and they didn't come. Only the AYFA teams came. We didn't see that coming. They all jumped on the buses and went back home. And so the following year, we turned it into a scrimmage. And we said, we're going to help everybody. And we tried to do the same thing. We got a few vendors out there, but, we found out that it was really it's the largest youth football event in the Midwest. I mean, we got 2,300 kids participate. It's some through the morning session and the afternoon session. It's a really neat thing. And, really we turned it into an opportunity to help those teams get some fresh blood hits and to understand who they were, and with nothing to, no failure. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody wins a scrimmage. If you do, you're doing the wrong thing.
And that event is a pretty neat use of space. So you have USA Sports Complex. It's being used for something other than soccer, so the AYFA and the soccer club work together nicely. Josh Krieger has a family reunion and cooks about 1.5 billion burgers and brats. I mean, it's a lot of, volunteers coming together for that one event. And it really is. It's a great kickoff to the season.
You also bring up another point. This organization probably can't run unless you have the volunteers.
Yeah.
And how do you get people invested into, helping all kids, not just your kid, but all kids?
Yeah, a lot of begging and crying. No, we've been very fortunate, and we struggle at times. But there are some people out there that they do the work of giants. In the list, it seems like every couple of years those names change, and then they're the next star. They just. I just came from a banquet. The Chargers banquet was at 5:00 tonight, and just seeing the people stepping up, and then kind of just watching that torch as it passed, and looking at, well, who's the next one? And we wrote Becky Salzman and Kyle Roy are kind of tweaking it and finishing it, but there's a standard operational procedure book or whatever on Google now to kind of help everybody as you go through. But there's so many moving parts. And then Rob from the high school sends all his kids down to get all their volunteer hours, and they help run game day, which is really helpful because those parents want to watch the kids play.
Yeah.
So for the most part, the high school kids run the game days.
And I saw that over the past couple of years with the Saints at Xavier games or when the home games were at FEL. All those players are there. They're announcing. Yep. And it's fun because they recognize younger brothers who they play with, and then they get excited into the mic. And yep. It's a lot of fun. And it makes it a good experience for everybody. Everybody knows, you know what? We're here for fun. We're here because this is a sport.
Right.
And it's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Come on.
Right. So do you guys remember the Gomeraks from Appleton North? One was a receiver, the older one, and then the younger one coming up. I think he was in 8th grade at the time, and the older one was calling the game, Tosh, to your and he was mispronouncing his own name, like his brother's name, and Gomerak, and and they just having fun with it, and you'd see the kid look up like, come on, that's your name, and it was a blast. And you're right. And to let those kids have fun with it, and they're hiding behind a mic, and it's great, but they're, you see them grow and they're yelling out touchdown, and it's a really cool thing to have those kids involved, but then give back. Right. I mean, they're giving back too. And then they're around them. They're, so the next generation. So there's Anthony Reichel is a 8th grader this year. His older brother played for me a couple of years ago, and he would come down to our running back meetings on Tuesday nights, and all of a sudden Anthony started showing up with him and just eating that up. Like, do you mind? I'm just going to sit back here. And he sat back in the room, and he never said a word, and just sat and listened to us just go through film and teach. And, now he was a stud running back at 8th grade this year. And we can't wait to get him up at North, but it's so cool, the brother stuff. You're right. And so this is where we were talking about Appleton West, right? And that's what Dom has to start doing those things. Yeah. And he will. I believe he will, and he'll get that ship righted over there. And I'm hopeful that, it's sooner than later.
What does the future hold? I mean, as you look into the crystal ball and you kind of look, several years down the line, what do you see?
Well, I'm very fortunate, Dad. I have 2 awesome kids that are doing really, really well. Brock graduated and is on scholarship at Augustana University. He's probably going to be redshirted this year, but next year I'd like to travel and go watch him play. He's a good football player. He's a lot of fun. He's doing well. My daughter is applying all over, including Cambridge, and she wants to do pre-law, which is mostly a history major. Yep. And so she's just got accepted to Auburn. She's looking at Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, Tennessee. She's got like a list of 13. She's been really crushing it with registrations and letters and all that. So we just got an accepted offer on a house down in Florida.
Nice.
And so we're probably going to be, going back and forth there a little bit. It's a little investment, little personal. And so we're going to, we're empty nesters in just not too long from now. And so we're going to go visit our kids because they're spreading their wings. We couldn't be prouder, and they're both excellent students. And, I never would have guessed I'd have a kid who would play college football and kind of follow in my footsteps and then play at a much higher level than I played even. And so I'm really proud, and I'm proud that he paved his own way more than anything, because when he decided to play college football, I shouldn't have anything to do with it. And I didn't. And I think when it came down to me telling Brock, if you decide it isn't for you in that year, I'm going to stand behind your decision to walk away. Whenever you walk away, you got to put yourself on the line out there and do what you do. That's got to be you, because college football, I played it. It will eat you up and spit you out so fast. You got to love it so much that when you hate it, you still love it. And that only makes sense to those that go through that grind. You know, he would get out of bed at 7 a.m. They'd eat as a team, and then this is fall camp. And then he'd get back to his dorm around 9:30 in the evening, and that every day. And so that takes a special kind of between the ears to be able to do that. And he's killing it. He's Scout Player of the Week almost every other week, and he's doing great. He's still growing, Joe. He's almost 6'3" now. He's probably in that 215. He's a beast. But I'm probably getting him a lot more street credit with his coaches than he knows, because when he got nominated to the All-Star, the Wisconsin All-Star game, I got his Huddle account. And so I got to watch practices and such. Well, it turns out that that's the same Huddle account that they set up for Augustana. So I get to watch every practice. So on Huddle, which is the video playing, it's the video teaching mechanism for all the schools, you can go in as an admin and you can pull down your roster and you can see how much film every kid's watching. Well, if I'm in his account, I'm probably logging a lot of minutes he's not, and he's getting credit for it. So my little secret, I don't know. He does know I go in and watch, though.
Huddle is incredible. It's a great tool.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's getting better and better too. It's funny. You go from north and we got maybe an end zone, maybe tight and wide angle. They got drones. They got handhelds right behind they got for practice. Like they have like 4 different feeds going at the same time just for practice. It's incredible what happens at college. The other answer to your question, Tosh, that's personal. I don't know that I can coach varsity football anymore with that kind of a schedule if I'm going to be gone all the time. So I may switch to freshmen, which are done by Thursday, or I may hang it up for a little while and see if I can do that. It's 26 years now I've been coaching, so that might be tough. But as far as next for AYFA, so I may or may not be stepping down as president. We'll see. I'm always trying the last couple of years, but we'll see where we're at. I will never leave it in a bad spot. The last time I wanted to step down was 2020, and we had a pandemic, and that was the time they probably needed me the most. And so stayed on, and that was a tough year for us, and we did an amazing thing. We had 188 kids play 7-on-7 football that pandemic, five weeks of working with the kids. And then we kept training after that, just offering it at USA. We had kids coming all the way into December, would come out to the fields and and there was snow on the ground, and we were still running what we call our NASA program. Now it's for the youth. It's called the Factory. So. And we just kept working with the kids because it was the healthiest thing they had in their lives, instead of going home sitting behind a monitor.
Right. Nick, I think the Eagles sing about your predicament in Hotel California. It's tough to leave, isn't it? Or maybe you can never leave.
I don't know. It's I'm kind of one of those that will just, when those decisions are made, I just don't think that it's 100% about me, unless it's a health thing, right? And it isn't. And so for me, I think I'm going to listen, and I think I'll know when it's time, because I hope they tell me. I don't want to be irrelevant. I don't want to be the guy who sits there as president and is so proud that they forget that a good league should change often, and it should adapt, and it should keep. I mean, I'm not talking about change the mission. I'm not talking about the philosophy or any of that, but parents weren't listened to when we started this. So if we listened to them and started it for those reasons, why would we stop listening to them? So if something else or more is needed, we got to be there to help them, because as this continues to change, we gotta stand in the way of complacency and maybe, if we get somebody in there at equipment and it isn't doing all the research, and we start buying cheap stuff and kids start getting hurt, That's a huge problem. I don't think that'll ever happen, but you look at what could happen if we aren't making these decisions the right way.
Well, you speak to, I think, a greater problem that every club, whether it's football, whatever the club is, it's that transition from group to group. Because I mean, you've stayed on longer as president, really, than Kevin Castellucci at Little League has been there a long time. The Pop Warner folks have been there a long time. But boy, a lot of these other players turn over every couple of years. Peter with the Saints has been there a long time. And you guys have stayed on without kids in the program for a lot of years, which is admirable in its own right. But at some point, it's only fair to you guys and girls that have put in all these time is to be able to move on with life. But I know it weighs on you and it's difficult. And I don't know what the solution is or what your thoughts are, but how do you find it? How do you transition? How do you put somebody in your place to keep that mission alive?
Well, I think I'm part of the problem. I think I've always been a guy that, because I never sit on my hands, I just do it. And when I just do it and it gets done, everyone's happy, but nobody learns anything. And what I got to do is be able to delegate better. I got to be able to trust better. I got to be able to say, well, I'll teach you how to do this. But, for example, when it came down to, well, who does the insurance? Well, I do that. And Josh Krieger stood up and said, why are you doing that? Like, teach me how to do it and I'll do insurance. And then he took over and he did insurance. And it was like, well, that wasn't that hard. That's my fault. Mm-hmm. I didn't trust others to just get it done, because when we started, and it's a product of what had to happen. We had few do all, and I didn't let anybody do it. I just would do it, and that's the only way it was going to work, was to work till 2:30 in the morning writing a competition agreement so we had it. And so if insurance asked, we'd give them a 34-page. I finished that competition agreement on the way to Jamaica on an airplane, just to make sure we had it so I could turn it in for insurance so we'd get it on time. These are true stories. Like and I have to go in every year and update that competition agreement so it's relevant, because it's changed quite a bit since 2016. So, but we had to have it, and it was an extension of our articles and all that. But I didn't even know what the hell it was. And our insurance was going to be gargantuan unless we could detail exactly what our league was. And so I sat and did it, and I got it done on the airplane. And then when we landed, I got it in the Wi-Fi and I was able to send it off, and we got our insurance. But those are all that little thing. And that's, again, I had to do those things. Nobody else was going to pick it up and do it. And I did all the research. And when we did the pandemic, I did an 18-page proposal report to the county that we could pull off doing it. I didn't know what I was doing. And so many people are afraid to fail today that they won't take those risks. And I think that's probably the most unique thing about me and Eric Hansen and Kip Golden and stuff, what we did here. And you, Joe, you're a part of that, and Sean Brokaw and others. And when we did that, we were just going to make stuff up, educate ourselves as we were going, and we weren't going to be afraid to fail, because how we felt were kids were counting on us. Our kids in that case. I mean, it was our own kids that were, but all those kids were. I was coach forever with those kids. I coached before I had kids, and then when I coached that team from flag football when they were 5, all the way through 12th grade. I coached those kids every single year, baseball, basketball, and football, all the way through. Even when I was varsity coach, I was still coaching those guys. And so I always felt they were counting on me to do the right things for them. And they're probably all just starting to figure out what a lot of us did for them. And that'll be a cool moment when all of them come to realize. Some won't care. That's just kids. Tosh, you know that. As a teacher, there are kids that just don't care. But
oh yeah.
But I think a lot of them do. And kids are great. And I think if we could see through their eyes a little bit better, I think we would realize that things are, that as adults, we got to do better. I think we fail more than the kids.
This is a good point. It's a question I wanted to ask a while back. You talked about, as a coach, you're there. You're not as necessarily known for being a coach. You're there because you support your kids. Who's a mentor for you? when you grew up and you think back?
So many. My parents, words matter. And my parents always had good words. Like they used, I didn't know who I was as a kid. None of us did. But when my mom would say, you're really caring. You care about others. And when she'd say it, you'd go, huh, yeah, you really do. And it was reassuring, right? And so you kind of thought, well, that helped me understand who I am. When we go off to college, or when, that's all about maturing and learning who you are. And I think that's, so my parents have been amazing. My brother started coaching me when I was a sophomore already. So they've been, my family's is still very, very close. So I've had a really great foundation. It's always interesting when you talk to like religious converts, and so I'm a cradle Catholic, right? And so when you talk to a convert, you're like, why did you go all in on Catholicism like later on? And then they start talking about your religion, like that you grew up with, and you're like, oh yeah, it is pretty cool. You didn't even realize, right? So sometimes you go blindly through life, and then certain things hit you. But I always find that intriguing there. But then football wise, man, I had some great experience. I started out as a little shoot jet, and we had some dads that didn't have kids in the program, and there was Coach Hammond and Coach Schomer, and we had Hippis. We had some just awesome. They just loved football, and it was just great. And so and then you go to the guys at Einstein. They were awesome, and then and then with Paul Engen, he's a legend. And then I went to Ripon with Ron Ernst, and he was a guy that I went at every level. I kind of ended up falling forward. Like Paul Engen would never say a swear word. Everybody knows that about him. He can articulate without swearing, and he does. And I think that's a great way to coach. And I think I'm similar to that because of him. And we have that philosophy on our sidelines at North High School, and that's carried down from Paul. It's not that way on most sidelines. There's a lot of vulgarity, and it's not. But I go to Ripon College, and Ron Ernst is the same way. He coaches without, you don't need to swear. That's, if we're intelligent people, we can choose better words, right? And so that's just the way they do it. But I think I have stolen from everyone. Like you read about, and sometimes you read the funny stuff, right? Is legendary coach for Florida State.
Bobby Bowden.
So Bobby Bowden's lines, he would say, you know what? The difference with a big guy is at the end of the game, your little guy, my big guy, they're dead tired. They played the game, so on and so. And he said, but at the end of the day, my guy's still bigger. It's like, that's why I recruit big guys, so it's just right. But you hear all of them say so many funny things. John McKay, notoriously, he was for the execution of his team. That's still one of the greatest lines ever. But no, I think put it this way, I've been fortunate to be around some guys where you just sit and listen. Craig Ahmet came into our program a number of years ago, and he came out of the pedigree. He was at Eau Claire, I think, or Stout. And he came through, and all of a sudden he starts teaching us the West Coast passing game. How fortunate is that? Like he's literally teaching the concepts, and here you are, you're just like, you can't write fast enough. You're putting everything down on paper, and we still use it today. We're a blend of all different kinds of offenses, and it's, you get the right people, you can really be scary. And but yeah, I think mentor wise, I don't know, other than my parents just making you a good person, right? And realize how do you try to get to that perfect version of yourself, knowing you can never get there, are definitely the mentors. But football wise, tons of all of them. I've had, why would you gravitate to somebody you don't like? Like when I hear some coaches talk, I was on the sidelines for ESPN, and Ray Rhodes was the coach for the 1 year. I know why he got fired and it's gone. I mean, I've never heard the F word used so often. It was unbelievable. You couldn't possibly fathom how many times that guy would drop an F-bomb on the sidelines. And it was like, who would want to play for that, right? So there's plenty of examples of good and bad, and you got to gravitate towards the good ones. And you hope, when you're coaching, especially the kids in high school, they're kids, you got to hope that they look at you with respect. The biggest thing about coaching, especially at the high school level, but even down in third grade, is trust works both ways. Mm-hmm. You're going to get a lot more out of me if I trust you. And if I can trust you as a kid and they can trust me as a coach, first of all, only earning trust from kids, it's not easy.
You brought that up, though. The first thing you said is you've got to be more than just a coach. You've got to be there for them. And that's where that trust comes in. So, yeah. And I like the fact that you said there's not one single person. There's bits and pieces of every single person. And that's a good testament to who you've encountered through your journey as well.
Yeah, very fortunate. Just a lot of great people, and I won't mention the bad ones, right? Because I don't pay much attention. We run into those, and they're good examples. And sometimes you just hope the kids didn't get tainted from it. Those are sad stories.
Nick, maybe even the most important mentor, and I don't know if everybody's aware, but I mean the Salms grew up on a farm, not maybe a deep Hail Mary from the north end zone at North. You can maybe hit the old Salm property. But farm life and Tasha's wife, Melissa, grew up on a farm. I mean, that's a real thing. That's a real way of growing up. You learn just true life values, hard work being first and foremost.
Yeah. Well, you know what the term no means. You'd get a rare yes. Dad, can I go to so-and-so's pool party? Whatever. No, chores to do. But no, having a lot of brothers helped because we did get out once in a while. But it was, and I'll say as a player, and I use this to the kids today. What's your why? Everybody's heard that. What's your why? Why are you here? Seriously, why are you even here? Like you're dogging through practice. You don't want to be here. Your body language, and all good coaches are body language readers, and your body language sucks. I don't want to be here because it looks like you don't want to be here. What's the deal? Like, what's your why? I'm here. I don't even get paid, and I'm here. Like, I can tell you my why. And, when I played, when I was your age, you know what my why was? I didn't shovel cow manure that day. I didn't have to milk the cows. I didn't have to be at the farm and drive the tractor and do this. I got to play football. What's your why? Why are you here? And, that was a huge why for me. I loved playing football because the alternative was literally crappy. But it also, the farm, learning how to work before others your age knew how to work is an unbelievable trait. You were well known as the hard worker, right? But it's also today parents, and Tosh, I'm sure I'll hit home on this one, is parents go to bat for their kids in dumb ways right now. And it's absurd. Mm-hmm. And when I came home, so I was at Jets, I was a running back and a Mike linebacker at Jets football, 8th grade, 7th grade it was. And so I get to Einstein and I'm the new guy. And I tried out for running back. I love running back. And Walter Payton was my guy and I was going to run hills like he did. And the offensive line coach comes up to me and he says, Nick, you're one of the strongest guys we have on the team. And you're tough. I want you to be our right guard. And I looked at him like, what? I'm a running back. Why would I play right guard? So I get home and milking cows, and Dad said, how'd practice go? I said, Dad, coach wants me to play guard. He said, and? I said, well, I don't want to play guard. I'm a running back. And he said, well, you'll play guard because he asked you to. And you're going to be the best damn guard on the team. And I'm like, so you don't care that I'm not playing running back? You're like, what? You're taking his side? And so that was the right message. And today it's I'll go talk to coach. Yeah. I'll go talk to that teacher. I'll go talk to that coach. I'm going to fix this for you. Why would you fix something great? And so here's what happened. I went in and Dad made me get over myself. And I played guard, and I don't know if I was any good. I really don't. But I learned so much about playing running back by playing guard. When they asked me to move back and go play running back because our running back got hurt, it was Pat Blessing. He was a center. And I played running back, and I had 2 or 3 touchdowns and just killed it. But it was because I could see better. Like I knew what the job was in front of me, and it made me a better running back. And here I was feeling sorry for myself, but thank God I had good mentors. I think my dad said, get over yourself, be a good guard. Then that's what your team wants. That's what your coach asks you to do. Are you going to tell your boss no someday? No, you're not going to get away with that. And so, growing up on the farm, but it's also, just dad, mom telling you the right thing. And it seems to be happening less. I get parents talking to me all the time.
The stories you two have both, Tosh was telling stories about teacher conferences, and Nick, through the years, we've had long conversations of unbelievably poor behavior by parents. I honestly don't know how you guys do it. I can certainly see why there's a shortage of teachers, shortage of coaches, shortage of officials, just because of that behavior. And Nick, you're right. It just doesn't make sense. And your story illustrates it perfectly. That's some of the reasons these days why parents get upset. Yet why get upset for something great?
It was great coaching. And then it was a great father-son moment. Like I was mad and feeling sorry. Well, how old was I? 12.
Right.
It was time for him to be the dad. And he did. He did a great job. And I'm grateful every moment. It's like, don't think you know everything. And the hard part, and I hope you say the same, Tosh, but the hard part is 80-20. This is not many. This is few ruining it for all. And it is. Those blowhards do ruin it. They do. But there really are a lot of great ones, and doing it well and doing it right. It's just those other ones wear you out because they take so much more energy to deal with. I don't know. I think we've got to just focus on those 80s and
Absolutely.
less 20s, and realize that, there's so much, that percentage of good is so much higher. And I don't know what to do about the bad ones. You kind of just, you can't take it personal. And I know it's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally correct. You have to focus on what is good. And that gets you through the small part that is actually the bad. So.
Right. Sometimes you can't just snap your fingers and all the bad ones go away.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
But coaching, that part of coaching, I've been pretty fortunate. But we do have them. There are parents out there, and I try to tell my story to the kids before the season starts. Like, guys, you may be the best running back to ever play in an Appleton North uniform, but as a Charger, you might be asked to play right guard. I don't know that, but you might. I was. When I was your age, they asked me to play right guard, and I got great. And what I learned from, and kids will trust that because you just told them that I had hard conversations when I was their age, and how it transpired. I was an all-state running back following that experience, and I do credit that as part of the reason. And so, it's good that coaches become vulnerable and put their stories out there to the kids, because the kids relate. Kids are smarter than we ever give them credit.
That's really true, Nick. Just telling the story. And I hope the parents, I hope there's some parents that are listening to this that maybe take a look in the mirror and think about it, and think about your side, because it is okay to fail. What the hell? We fail all the time. I'm word on the street is I'm a professional failure. So it happens. It's always going to happen. I don't know how we fix it. And it's great. We could have a separate episode, Tosh, on this, and the stories that you could tell from teaching are identical to what Nick was just talking about. It's a head scratcher.
That's because teaching and coaching are the same thing.
Right.
No doubt.
Really, truly are.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
You're a winner in my book, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Nick.
I got to write that chapter yet, but you're a winner in my book.
That'd be second edition.
Yeah, right.
No, this was great, Nick. I mean, I know we could talk for hours more. There's a heck of a lot more to talk about, and we'll have you back on the Newsa-Cast. There's some other subjects I think we want to talk to you about that would fit better, and some episodes down the road. But this was a great story about the AYFA. To me, it's been an incredible story. I'm glad I got to live through it. I've actually learned a lot from it. More than anything, you touched on it earlier, but what you and Kip and all of you guys taught me, and I've fundamentally tried to change this in my life, is just that you're defining every day as it comes. You don't know you don't know how to solve every single problem that came along with the AYFA. You just did it. You figured out how to do it, and I try to apply that to my life, and that's really, to me, just personally, I took that from you guys, and I forever grateful for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is a ton of fun. I mean, the football stories that we could tell are unbelievable. I know you guys have that old look at new. I mean, gosh, you could go into some football, and you guys were living through how big football used to be in Appleton.
Yeah.
And an old look at new. There are some stories. That was my senior year, 93. There's over 9,000 fans at that East-West game. They were
Yep.
6-7 deep all the way along the track. It was unbelievable, that was football in Appleton in the 90s.
And old look at new, Tosh, rip off the segment.
There you go.
Yeah.
I appreciate the personal side that you brought to this as well. Not just about the football, but about the personal side of you and what you brought into it as well. I think that was fantastic, and I think the listeners are really going to enjoy that.
Yeah, I hope so. It's interesting. People find it interesting, I guess. But, there's the thing I'll always leave is I'm never a guy that sat on my hands when I saw a need to do something. And so I think that's what drives me is I don't want to be known as that guy that sat back and watched a situation I couldn't help.
Pretty sure that should be written on your tombstone, Nick, in about 100 years from now.
Right. Yeah, well, it's fitting, though, and I think that's one of the more prideful things I look back at as I close in on 50, is that I really have really tried to not sit on my hands and make those around proud to be, a part. And because, again, I did not do any of this alone, any of it. It was all great people that believed in my story, believed in what I was trying to do, and made this all work. I don't deserve all the credit. It's because there were some wonderful, amazing people that did just as much work, and committed to it. And by getting them to buy in, it was possible.
Well, Tosh, how about we take an old look at new? What do you say?
That sounds good. It's always a good segment. A little bit of history is always fun.
Absolutely. It's actually my most favorite segment of the show. So what do you have, Tosh? What are you looking at here in the new?
It's hockey season in my household, so I'm going to go take a look back at it's kind of hockey related, but November 20th, 1928, it was the opening of the Boston Gardens. And the Montreal Canadiens played the Boston Bruins and beat the Bruins 1-0. But the Boston Garden, that's a legendary building for sure.
I mean, for I mean, the hockey, absolutely just incredible.
Yeah.
I probably lean just slightly more towards basketball on the parquet floor,
Right.
and Larry
Absolutely.
Bird and those epic battles with the Lakers and Magic Johnson and the bad boys in Detroit, and just
Absolutely.
the short shorts and the physical, the elbows to the freaking head. And well, what the heck? We had Bill Walton, right, Tosh?
Right. Absolutely.
Former Celtic that played in that building. So heck yeah.
Yeah. Legendary building for sure. 1928.
And of course, my favorite band and one of Fish's breakout shows very early on in their career was in the Boston Garden. So that's kind of cool as
Very
well.
nice.
Yes.
Excellent. So what do you got, Joe?
Well, Tosh, it's not sports related, but it's very near and dear to my heart. And I thought it deserved an old look at new, and that's it's the Appleton North Theater Department, which is just I'm becoming knowledgeable in just how legendary, how absolutely incredible this program is. But I specifically want to take a look at the State Theater Festival, and for all intents and purposes, we've just finished up the WIAA State Football Championships and the volleyball a week or so before. Those are all big things. Everybody knows what the State Football Championship is, but I'm sure very few people know what the State Theater Festival is. And the Appleton North Theater Department is absolutely dominant in this category. They just won the 25th consecutive Critics' Choice Award, and that's basically equivalent to winning the D1 championship football. It'd be like a 25 straight state championships. So you think of Kimberly's 70, or whatever straight wins. That was not 25 state championships, now albeit it's less games, but still nonetheless it's just an incredible feat. So this festival, it's incredible, the criteria and what they have to do, because it pulls athletics and everything into it. What it is, Tash, is they have 40 minutes. You start with an empty stage, you get 40 minutes, you bring in the set, you do the play, you clear the set. There can't be even a drop of water left on the stage. You're disqualified. You can't go 1 second over 40 minutes, 30 seconds. If you're at 40 minutes, 31 seconds, you're disqualified. It's incredible. The show that they put on, they put on a state send-off last week that I was able to go to, and I have never been so transformed almost. And I mean, you and I have been to some incredible events. I've, always speak of my fondness of music and fish shows, and you get transformed into those. It was the same feeling here to see what they pulled off, the production and how they did it. And it's absolutely incredible. So they won it again this year. There's this festival, to give you an idea of the size, there's 2,000 high school students participate in it every year. Okay. So it's quite a few. We're not talking just a few kids. That's quite a bit. And it's the full state, and less than half of the competing schools even qualify for the festival, for this each level. So pretty incredible. And I thought well deserving of an old look at new. And, selfishly as a dad, I'm super proud of my daughter, Amelia, who is a part of this program, had a beautiful part in Metamorphosis, which was the one act that they put on. So salute to those guys. Bravo. Well deserved. And if anybody's ever looking for anything to do, check out Appleton North's production. They've got Anastasia is going to be their musical coming up, and it's so well worth it. So bravo to them.
Yeah, that's excellent. They do a great job out there. Ron Parker is fantastic. So yeah, check out Appleton North. All the high schools as well.
Yes.
They all do some really good things. So
yes,
fantastic stuff. That's an excellent look at some history there. 27 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Unbelievable. Well, Tosh, this is a classic Red Smith Banquet throwback. 1988. An absolute legendary football player, from the 50s, from the 60s. Baltimore Colt, Art Donovan.
Yeah, I mean, not only, let's face it, not only a legendary football player, but a legendary personality. You remember him on David Letterman's show. I think he appeared like 10 times on the Letterman show. Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show, and just he would have everybody in stitches laughing from the get-go. Just, bigger than life personality.
So I got to tell you guys a story about Art, and this is 88, Tosh. You and I graduated high school in this year. My dad was the chairman of the Banquet, and I remember Art Donovan coming, and Art got in. So the Banquet was on Tuesday. Art got in on Sunday. And part of Art's contract, Art was one of the Miller Lite guys. That's how he came to come here. In his quote contract, he needed an 18-pack, a case and a half of beer every night. So Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, then he left Wednesday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, he needed, room service had to deliver 18 cans of beer for Art Donovan. He would just crush those and hold court. So he had the suite, one of the suites at the Paper Valley Hotel overlooking Jones Park. And I can remember this vividly. Bob Lloyd was there and Art Donovan, and he's just sitting there telling stories of the good old days of the 60s and the 50s and just playing NFL football and just crushing beer. And he was one of those guys. I mean, it's not like he was just getting drunk and getting lit. He was just Art Donovan, just holding court, telling stories. And it was just one of those nights that obviously it should be a forgetting and never forgotten, Tosh. It was that good.
Yeah, these guys who played during that time, just it's amazing because they weren't getting paid a ton. Many of them worked other jobs, and the stories that can tell, you're going to hear these stories with Art Donovan during this throwback. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. And, go back and check out some clips of him. He is a bigger than life character. He was.
Absolutely. Get a towel for your eyes because you're just going to laugh. It's Art Donovan, folks. Enjoy. It's one of our favorites, one of the best throwbacks we've had to date. Art Donovan.
Red Smith Sports Awards. Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
The guy does a tremendous amount of work all over the country for charity. So let's give him a big Red Smith welcome, Artie Donovan. I'm glad he blew the whistle. I had to go too. Now, Father, if you want to leave the room, and Reverend, I think you better go right now. We had some great times. We played against this guy, Jimmy Taylor. And I didn't know who he was. He was a rookie, see? And the guy playing on me, I beat him and we rushed the quarterback. I don't know who it was. Bart Starr. And this guy hit me a shot under the eye, and down I go. I look up and I says, I'll get you. And he's looking down at me with no teeth. So I said to Marquette, I said, hey, what? Who's that guy? He said, I don't know, he's a rookie. So I said, well, I'm going to get it the next time I get a chance. Next time I hit him a shot, down he goes. I said, I got to get one up on him. So in about the fourth quarter, we're winning the game. I give him another shot, down he goes. I'm walking off the field with a man from Baltimore who came to see the game, and somebody taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, and it's Taylor. Bam! He hit me a shot. He said, how are we even? We went to training camp. We were all a bunch of big guys that really enjoyed each other's company. And we had one guy, a defensive right end, his name was Don Joyce. Well, they talk about sanity as a very thin line. But Joyce is on the other side of the line. Joyce is bad. He got a sticker in his eye, And when you watch him, you got to watch because he hit anybody can hear him. Anyhow, we're up training camp. The guy says, who do you think's the biggest eater on the team? I said, what are you talking about? So I say Southern Fried Chicken. I says, oh, Joyce can eat more than anybody else. The guy says, no, Marquette. I said, for $100. So we have $100 on the chicken eating contest. And two other guys, they bet $100, so the three of us bet $300. So on a Sunday afternoon, we go over to the dining room at Western Maryland College. By the way, Pastor, it was a Methodist school. They treated us nice. They had steak only on Friday. That's a true story. That a guy, this is steak every Friday. Well, I don't know. I've got some things here where, like, we're talking about the 58 Packer game in Baltimore. Rained the whole game, and I think with 2 minutes left to go in the game, we're beating at 57-0. And they put a guy in from Honolulu. I guess he's from Honolulu. He looked like a Hawaiian. And he was a quarterback named Joe Francis. And then he sees what's going on. He wants no part of the game, period. I'm not saying he's a coward, but he didn't want to play. But when he got that moving, the Green Bay Packers start moving down around my 30-yard line. And here he comes out of the huddle, and Pellington's howling, "Don't let him score! Kill him! Kill him!" Kanaki, he's going on screaming and hollering. And his quarterback, he takes the time out. And he says to Pellington, "I don't want to be out here either." And that was the end of the game. About 2 months ago, I went up to Feastville, New York. The FBI agent's former president that were in the Marine Corps had a 2-day Marine birthday. He invited me up being an old World War II Marine. They invited me up to say a few words and to get an award. And I want to tell you something. If I ever had faith in this great country of ours, is when they had 4 Medal of Honor award winners. They had a colonel that spent 7 years in a Vietnamese prison. And when they came in, and all these young guys, and they paraded in front of the commandant of the Marine Corps, I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, it's the proudest day I've ever been in America. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes,
All right, that was an amazing throwback all the way back to 1988 with Art Donovan.
Yes.
Great personality, great guy to have. Hope you enjoyed that segment, but we also have one of our favorite segments coming up, Joe.
What do you say, Tash? Play a little Forgetting and Forgotten?
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Giddy up.
Joe, what do you want to forget? What is your forgotten for this week?
Well, Tash, I definitely forgot. I tell you, it was a tough week this past week. You mentioned last week the clock's changing, and damn, it hit me this week, man. It was tough to work because as a letter carrier, man, you forget how tough it is to work in the dark. You've got to throw a headlamp on at 4 o'clock. It's really hard to see. 5 o'clock feels like it's midnight and there's not a soul left in the world. Everything slows down, and this is the time of year for us where the volume picks up. So that's not a good combination. That makes for some long days, and the old body's feeling it. That's for sure. So yeah. I had forgotten that. I need to whip myself into shape, and eventually you get just used to working in the dark. But, Melissa's parents know and all that. Working in the dark sucks, but, there's just some jobs that you have to do. And where we live, it's just, that's the way it is these days. But
that's true. That is absolutely true. And I'm going to kind of play off that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that time kind of slows down, and this time of year, I feel like time is speeding up. Like I don't have enough time to do everything we want to.
Yeah.
With the holidays and everything popping through, and you know it's coming. The holidays are coming up, and I always forget how much things speed up and how much you have to do and how much you have to continue to do over this time. And so, I want to forget the hustle and bustle of the holidays and just let it get back to being nice and easy.
Yeah, that's a wish, Tash. But isn't that weird though with time? Because you can feel both things, like multiple things. Like in the moment in the day, it can feel like stuff is just dragging, taking forever. But then you're right. It's like, dude, it's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Well, how the hell did we get here? Yeah, and I thought it was just summer. Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable. I mean, the holidays, it's a lot that goes on, and I don't know, we just got to take it in, and it is what it is, and just enjoy it and
put on a smile, and off you go.
That's right.
All right, Joe. So what are you never forgetting?
Well, Tash, the world we live in is so freaking nuts. I can't even believe it. So the Beatles released a new song. It's on Spotify, brand new song, Now and Then. Legit Beatles new release. Like John, Ringo, Paul, George, the whole, like the Beatles released a new tune with the help of AI, with a long lost tape that was found that they worked on in the 70s, worked on again in the 90s. My understanding is that Lennon's voice track could never really match up with the piano track, and AI and this new technology is able to isolate each of those individually and to pull out. And, Paul and Ringo then get together, a year or two ago in the studio and kind of just work with it and add their things to it. And it's a legit tune. I mean, I listened to it. I actually listened to it a few times getting ready for this show just to hear it. And it's I don't know, man. It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just I never know what to think about AI. I think it's just we're gonna have to buckle up our seatbelts. This is gonna be absolutely insane technology for us to live through. But I tell you what, maybe that's Ringo calling me right now. To give us this, to give us a new Beatles tune after unbelievable, isn't it?
That whole technology is through all genres as well. My son Ethan was playing some music. He was, and I thought it was Travis Scott, and he goes, "It's not Travis Scott. That's an AI voice singing the entire track." Yeah. And so there's a lot of it out there that he is. Yeah, AI's. It's out there. It's going to be a player here. So you don't have to sing. You can just AI the entire musical track, which is crazy. But hey, it's kind of interesting. We'll have to see what happens with it.
Tash, if we're ever just in a spot where we just don't have any content for a show, we'll have to do an AI generated Newsa-Cast and see if the folks even know.
Probably not.
Well, how about you, Tash? What's never forgotten in your world?
We're coming up to Thanksgiving, and one of the traditions we used to have as a family, and it still kind of continues here and there, is the Festival Foods Turkey Trot. And I believe we met a few times, pulling kids in wagons, having dogs, and being out in the cold and the snow. I think one year it was there's a ton of snow.
That's right.
But my wife and nephew are going out this year, and they're going to do the turkey trot. And, the turkey trot is just an awesome family time. It's been through, lots of different areas where they've walked over the course of the years, but it's just a good time. It's a good time to be with family, get some exercise before you sit down and load up on turkey and all that good Thanksgiving food and watch some football. But yeah, it was always a tradition. We did it for a number of years, and then boys got a little older and it was a little bit more sporadic. But yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, Tasha. I loved it when we did that together. That was great. What a perfect way to start off Thanksgiving, right? Just nothing to really do in the morning. Right. Obviously the parade's on, and we talked parades last week, but it's still on when after the turkey trot. I absolutely love that. When there's been some fantastic mornings. You're right. We had that snow the one year, but usually it's nice sunrise. You're on the avenue. The route's nice. You feel good. And we've had dogs on the route. It works well with dogs, at least most dogs, unless you have a basset hound. It might not quite work as well, as we found out last year, Hazel. But it's all good. No, it's a great event. It's for a lot of people, it's a tradition on Thanksgiving, a really cool tradition. So I'm not going to be in it this year, unfortunately, but when this drops on Thursday morning, hopefully I'm with a couple of my boys working out at Crunch. Actually, we have an early morning workout meeting that day. So I'm kind of looking forward to that as well.
Excellent.
But yes, Tosh, enjoy, or at least Melissa. Yeah, enjoy. Is she doing the run or the walk?
Just the walk. Yeah.
The run is cool because it goes by my house. So
excellent.
When they're not there, I'll sit with the dogs in the window and watch the people run by. While drinking coffee and listening to the Newsa-Cast.
There you go. Yes. Well, that was our F&F for the week. Hope you enjoyed it.
thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from past Red Smith banquets. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thank you to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. One of the best ways to help us grow is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.